Welcome to the Infidel, podcast of the damned, the weekly companion show of the Infidel News. Join us as we discuss this week's religious accounts from an atheist perspective. From Timbuktu to Toledo, from Kathmandu to Canada, from Bangalore to Bangladesh. We deplore, you deride. And here are your hosts, Dave and Nicole.
Hello, and welcome to show number 15 of the Infidel podcast of the damned. I'm your host, J. David Core, atheist, author, and avuncular arthropod. With me is my co-host, Nicole Samard. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
First show of the year.
Yep. Also joining us today is one of our anchors, the Mudbrooker. Hello, Muddy.
Howdy.
Today is Wednesday, January 21st, 2015, and we're going to be discussing the upcoming episodes of the Infidel News, which will run beginning Monday, January 26th, 2015. Show notes for all of our podcasts can be found at infidelpodcast.blogspot.com. So as Nicole said, this is our first show back after our hiatus, and everything old is new again. We got the same group that we left with. We all just sat, we've been sitting here for 6 weeks. Just waiting for
My ass is getting pretty numb by now, too. Let's hurry up and get this on over with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to make a difference this season and give a bit of a break to the anchors, and I'm giving them a whole week to record their shows now instead of 2 days.
The only drawback to that is we were already a week behind. Now we're 2 weeks behind as far as like getting fresh news out. But as long as I think as long as a lot of the stories are stuff that people don't hear anyway, so it's still stuff that they're just learning. But it's still old news by the time they get it from us.
Yeah, but that's why I try to pick. One reason I try to pick news that nobody else will cover.
Yeah,
we remain fresh.
Right. And speaking of news that nobody will cover. Did you hear anything about this Charlie Hebdo thing?
Yeah, I saw an article about that, but I don't read French, so I couldn't really make much sense of it.
Yeah.
Charlie what?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that story. I mean, we picked just the wrong time to go on a hiatus as far as covering the news is concerned, because there was so much stuff that went down over this holiday. It's ridiculous, the stuff that was happening.
Well, do you know why it's called Charlie, by the way?
I have no idea.
Charles de Gaulle, president.
What does Hebdo mean?
Hebdo means weekly.
Oh, Charlie Weekly. Okay.
Exactly.
I see. Yeah, there was and then there was so much news that came out of it too, like the Pope and Bill Donahue. Saying that basically like saying that not apologizing for the attitude, if not the terrorism itself, the attitude that leads to the terrorism, apologizing for that, which was a little bit ridiculous. But I don't know. Did you happen to see the cartoon that I put up on Facebook?
Which one?
The one I drew in response to the Bill Donahue and the Pope.
Can't remember seeing it.
It was I made up the absolute most horrific religious joke that I could possibly think of, and it's not a funny joke. It's just I'm not even going to repeat the joke. It's awful. It has to do with Jesus and Muhammad and the holes in Jesus's hand and masturbation. So it was grotesque, but I did it as a way of saying, look, and it wasn't that it's necessarily so that what they said was, or what Charlie Hebdo did in the cartoon was appropriate. It doesn't matter if it's appropriate. You don't get to tell them not to do it. And with the Pope and Bill Donahue making their statement, I made that cartoon and I tweeted it to Bill Donahue.
Well, there's one thing I think all of viewers or listeners should be aware of. We all know that a joke that's translated, a joke that's explained is not as funny as a joke that you understand the first time. Mm-hmm. So when you've got something like that, it already makes a joke hard to understand. When you add to it social and historical
context
to the whole thing, what may look at first sight like something that's racist or questionable has a totally different tone. So do not judge Charlie Hebdo by just taking a look at it, looking at the show and seeing what it the cartoons and say, oh well, I don't like it. You don't know it, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
And those guys are quite deep in a lot of what they do.
Yeah, well, that and the French just aren't funny anyway, so.
I like Jerry Lewis. What do I know?
Yeah.
Well, they don't seem to be taking jokes very well right now, because the city of Paris is looking into suing Fox Network.
Yeah, well, Fox Network was ridiculous with what they did, but they don't deserve to be sued. They shouldn't be sued for it. They did apologize. It was that one guy. They should have fact checked.
Actually, it wasn't just that one guy. After that, it was the no-go zones where
they were repeating.
Was a mantra that got picked up and repeated in all their shows.
Right. Yeah, because they trusted his word and didn't do any fact checking. But still, I'm no fan of Fox, but I wouldn't sue him over that. The other thing too, speaking of the French not having a sense of humor, we did a story last year on a black anti-Jewish comedian that they have over there. I can't pronounce his name, but
Giovanni.
Yeah, and they were going after him for tax evasion and stuff. Well, he made a Facebook post, and they basically charged him with a hate crime for something that he said the same week that they're marching arm in arm in support of free speech. It's a little bit, they don't really, I don't think there's a few things, they're a little bit unaware, not only just humor, they're a little bit unaware in a few other things too.
Well, it's another thing, another difference that you have to realize between the U.S. and the rest of the world. A lot of countries around the world have hate laws.
Yeah.
The U.S., freedom of speech is taken to a point where everybody's allowed to say whatever they want and protest whichever way they want and say whatever they want. Other countries, even Canada and France and a lot of Germany, they have hate laws, hate speech laws, and you're not allowed to say absolutely anything that you want.
Right.
Which is why, what's his name? Irving, the British
David
historian, got in so much trouble in Austria, and, he ended up in jail over there.
Yeah, David Irving is his name.
Yeah.
He likes to think he's a historian, though he's not.
We have one of those. What's Barton? Is that his name that we have over here? Yeah, we have our own version of that. So anyway, all the stories in today's news show were selected because they relate in one way or another to free speech. So do you want to go ahead and hit the first story, and we can start from the beginning?
All right, here's the first story.
As is the case with many government buildings, the Florida state capitol has been a battleground for different understandings of religious freedom. In previous years, protests, including lawsuits, have been lodged against the religious displays that many felt represented an imposition of specific religious beliefs on the public. In 2013, in order to avoid this problem, Florida designated a special area referred to as the Free Speech Zone, where anyone could erect displays of their own faith. An atheist group calling itself the Satanic Temple took advantage of this new policy and erected a display which included comedic references to religion such as the Flying Spaghetti Monster. At first, state officials did not allow the exhibit to remain, but during this past holiday season, threats of legal action from Americans United for Separation of Church and State caused the state's Department of Management Services to reverse its stance and allow a depiction of an angel crashing into a sea of flames with a message reading, "Happy Holidays from the Satanic Temple," to be shown. One local Catholic woman, 54-year-old Susan Hemmerich, saying that she could not allow that to happen, took matters into her own hands and pulled the display down. An officer attempted to stop her, but she persisted and was placed under arrest, but not before essentially demolishing the offending display. When he saw the damage done, John Porgel of American Atheists stated that although they did not like the Christian displays that had been there in the past, they tolerated them and acted within the law, erecting their own anti-religious display as an alternative to engaging in vandalism. The damaged atheist display was left in its demolished state. Mr. Portal said that it was a sign of what religious right's idea of tolerance is. A representative for the group who installed the original Christian manger display said they did not approve of what Hemrick did, even though they found the competing display offensive. Hemrick, who will face charges of criminal mischief, says her only regret is that she did not damage the crashing angel display even more effectively.
Yeah, now, there's a perfect example of the religious right falling right into our trap, because by doing what she did, she made our point for us more effectively than we could have ever made it, but just by putting up the display. It goes right to the heart of a kind of intolerance that they usually think that we're guilty of, just because we want equal time.
It's interesting because you can't see the pictures. You can't. You just hear the story when we do the show. I've got a great picture of that woman, who destroyed the Christmas scene. She's wearing a T-shirt that says "Catholic Warrior" on it.
I've seen the picture. I've seen that picture. Yeah.
So I thought that was a great picture to put, a Catholic warrior.
Yeah, she's just so unaware of how how she's doing us a favor.
I wonder how the case in Oklahoma has been going with the Satanists trying to get their Baphomet statue put up, and I think the Hindus wanted to put up a Manu Man, a monkey god too. I know they applied for it because Oklahoma has the law where you can put up religious monuments on the state house grounds. But I haven't heard anything more about how far they'd actually gotten with that.
Yeah, well, since the Ten Commandments were destroyed, not by an atheist, by the way, but since they were destroyed, I'm wondering if there's even any point in either of the cases going forward, unless they are going to resurrect the Ten Commandments.
Actually, from what I heard, they are rebuilding the Ten Commandment monument. It's coming back.
Yeah. See, because at one point they had said that the atheists they weren't going to honor the atheists, or the Satanists rather, the Satanist request. They were just going to put a moratorium on it. But if they're rebuilding that statue, then that's not a moratorium.
Absolutely. And I'm reminded at the same time of that story we discussed, last year, about Florida, that school board that decided that because Satanists wanted to distribute coloring books of their own, the school board decided that there were people who wanted to take advantage of their free speech policy, which again made totally the point for us, that you have to have complete free speech or you don't have free speech.
Right. And then the other thing that's in the background all along of all of these things is that we really don't want to put up displays. We want nobody to put up displays. So when they do something like that, when they say, okay, well then we're not going to let anybody do it. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, whenever you come across one of these, Christian nation type people who are always insisting that the American Constitution is based on the Ten Commandments, what always really gives them a good stumping is just ask them which one of the commandments is in the Constitution.
Yeah.
You'll get a blank look because most of them don't know what the Ten Commandments are in the first damn place. They can name about 4 of them,
right.
But much less the Constitution. They'll get as far as maybe the Second Amendment, maybe the First, but beyond that, and the truth of the matter is most of the Constitution directly contradicts the Ten Commandments. The First Commandment and the First Amendment are exact opposites.
Yeah. And also, you know, one of the 10 Commandments is "Thou shalt not kill," and the Constitution allows for killing in 3 different ways. It has a war and capital punishment and treason. So all 3 of those are allowed in the Constitution. So.
And back to the school boards. I found out that you remember that young boy who was a Buddhist, and the school board didn't allow him to, you know.
Yeah, Scott Lane's kid.
Yeah, Scott Lane's kid. We interviewed Scott Lane one week, and so that you know, everything was supposed to be settled with them, and they were happy, and they took the kid to a different school, but they were going to change their policies and respect, you know, neutrality, etc. And then I found out a few weeks later that the school board was doing free distribution of Bibles to all the kids during lunch. I'm sorry?
The same school?
The same school board, the same damn folks. So they're distributing, and so the father was so angry. Now, if I were the type of journalist who likes to create news, I would have been in touch with the Satanists and get them to do, but you know, in that state, what they've already done in Florida. But I'm not that kind of journalist, so in case we've got, I don't know, somebody gets the idea to
entirely on their own.
Yes, exactly. We might put a link as to where this is happening in the school board, just as extra information, just so that you know what we talked about today.
It's in the show. It'll be in the show.
Yes, exactly. It's part of the show, so we gotta put the information.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do the second story and see how that ties in.
So-called anti-sodomy laws have largely fallen by the wayside in modern Western cultures. After failing to make such a law stick in Oregon in 1992, Scott Lively founded Abiding Truth Ministries in 1997, and concluding that America was a lost cause, toured several former Iron Curtain countries in hopes that the anti-gay sentiments would be more welcomed. He was subsequently invited to give his presentation in Uganda, where the message is said to have been served as an incitement to persecute LGBT people, both informally and formally. In December of 2014, a new law entitled the Prohibition of Promotion of Unnatural Sexual Practices Bill 2014 has been introduced before the Ugandan Parliament after an earlier Anti-Homosexuality Act of 2014 was struck down by the Constitutional Court of Uganda on technical grounds. An earlier law was most controversial in that it had a provision for the death penalty for repeat offenders. The new law softens the language a bit, but it also casts a wider net that would impact the entire LGBT segment of the population, making even public meetings of people in the category illegal, and prohibiting government services such as health care and housing assistance to them. Lively is said by many Ugandans to be one of the primary instigators of the earlier law, and some of them have taken them to court in the U.S. under provisions of the Alien Tort Statute, which gives aliens to the United States the ability to file civil suits in U.S. district courts. Lively is being sued by the Ugandan human rights organization Sexual Minorities Uganda, with support from the Center for Constitutional Rights. Quoting the CCR website, "This is the first known alien tort statute case seeking accountability for persecution on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. The United States Supreme Court has affirmed the use of the ATS as a remedy for serious violations of international law norms, which are widely accepted and clearly defined." The suit was first brought at the United States District Court in Springfield, Massachusetts in March 2012, and has been working its way through the preliminaries ever since. Most recently, the First Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston denied a petition by Lively to have the suit dismissed. Since this is a civil case, the worst that could happen to Lively would be monetary awards, and the ultimate outcome is still very much in doubt. But it may give pause to others who wish to make old-time morality into a new U.S. export. Ironically, much of the current biblical scholarship denies earlier meanings of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah entirely, casting it as being more of an anti-rape message than anything else.
There you go. So Scott Lively is is our version of what was his name? The black comic from France.
Dieudonné.
Yeah, he's being persecuted for his speech, so, which is a speech that calls for the persecution of other people. So, yeah, it's a great big circle of free speech there.
Well, that's brings us back to what I was saying earlier, is that the United States is not the rest of the world, and the rest of the world has its own laws that are totally different.
Right.
And
Well, but in this case, he's a United States citizen being sued under United States law for something that he did in Uganda that was totally legal in Uganda. So it's kind of, there's a little bit of a circle there. It's I'm not feeling bad for him at all, but it is kind of a little bit a little bit strange that he's being sued for hate speech in a country that he committed in a country where it's not only not hate speech, it's encouraged.
actually, I'm going to do Google while you and Muddy are taking going forward with this, because I'm curious as to whether they do have or do not have hate speech laws in Uganda.
Well, but he's clear. If they do, he's clearly not in violation of them because they're putting it on their ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. Let's see. I'm out of practice here. I drew a complete blank on what I was just about to say.
I do that from time to time.
I know.
But there's another. Isn't there another country over in Africa close to Uganda, but it isn't Uganda, that also has anti-gay legislation going forward? I think there's another country that's doing. I can't remember which country it is.
Yeah, I think Kenya might have been doing something similar.
I think it is Kenya. Yeah.
You know, I'm not positive, but and they've had a lot of the same kind of problems with evangelical Christians pushing witch hunting. You know, it's got to be pretty widespread in Africa, Nigeria, Uganda, Kenya. You know, pretty much all the way across the continent. You know, there's a big swath where there's been outbreaks of this.
Yeah.
You know, burning kids for witches.
Yeah. See, here in the United States, we have this whole idea that that the 21st century is like the United States and Canada and France and Europe. Africa is huge. You know, they show you. There's a couple of memes on the internet that show that anglicized maps always diminish the size of Africa, but Africa is actually as big geographically as almost all the rest of the world combined, and it's densely populated in most places. So this is a large swath next to China. It's like the largest group of people in the world living in large part like it's the Stone Ages.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. By the way, I couldn't find anything about, at least not this quickly, about hate speech laws in Uganda. But when you consider the level of education, you know, the fact that they live basically, you know, in a country like Uganda, you know, it's, you know, so many decades behind the rest of the world. I don't think it's quite right to expect them to listen to somebody like, just because I want to say his name now.
Scott
Lively, telling them falsehoods when they have no way of knowing that he's lying to them.
Mm-hmm.
If he's trying that over in the U.S., you know, at least people have a chance of knowing that he's full of shit.
Yeah.
But over there, they don't. you know, if anybody's watched that thing about licking the, you know, that stupid video about licking the poo-poo.
They lick the poo-poo. Yeah.
Yes. You know, that gives you an excellent idea as to, you know, how backwards compared to us they can be.
Yeah.
You know.
But even in the countries where over there where it's not as far backward, like in Cairo or in, you know, in Egypt and places like that, those are Northern Africa too, but the religion keeps them stupid in so many ways.
Yeah, and it's not really strange, but it's really works out well for the Pentecostal and the evangelical Christians who are missionaries over there, that a lot of the most superstitious, you know, the demons behind every bush kind of belief that a lot of the evangelical Christians hold fit really well with a lot of the most superstitious parts of the native religions that are there in the native legends, you know, because Christianity grew up right next door to Africa to begin with, you know, so there's a lot of cross-pollination between the two. But yeah, it's not a very hard sell when you already have kind of a folk belief that really aligns well with the more radical end of the evangelical movements.
But exactly, you just brought up a point there that that really strikes me, is that the evangelicals, for example, they have that thing where they talk about Satan being involved in everything. This, you know, for some reason, you know, the car won't start that day. It's Satan who was preventing them from achieving whatever. Well, you take something like that and you put it in this, you bring it into a society like Uganda and a lot of them over there. You end up with, as a result, people who believe in witches and burn people because, you know, alive because they think that they are witches.
Mm-hmm. Well, but they're actually, I just wrote a story today about Tanzania. There actually are witch doctors still practicing over there, practicing tribal religions. There's faith healers, there's herbalists. You know, all of that is technically, as far as from a Christian point of view, is witchcraft.
But for them, real witchcraft is when somebody is evil. Especially when that's when they're being told by the evangelists.
It's communing with Satan. It's communing with and communing with Satan is communing with spirits, and communing with, because the Bible says thou shalt not you know, suffer a sorceress to live, and it has a couple of other things in there about what a sorceress is, and don't go to soothsayers and all that. That's mostly Old Testament stuff, but it's in there. So anybody who does anything that's tribal religion can be called a witch.
Yep. So, but you look what happens over there. It's in Africa that that we hear about, you know, people being burned alive for witchcraft.
And Haiti.
In Haiti, again, that's not the place where you've got the highest level of education.
Yeah.
They're having a lot of trouble over there trying to catch up. They've destroyed their forests, and now they're paying the price, you know, multiple times fold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do the last story and see where we go from there.
According to a story broadcast on KOAT News 7 in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, a local teacher has been pressured to resign over a story a student wrote about Jesus. The creative writing assignment at Cleveland High School, which led to the issue, was for students to use a character from a legend or mythology and rewrite the tale in a modern setting. One of her students met the challenge by updating the New Testament account of Jesus at the wedding at Cana. In the pupil's new version, rather than turning water into wine, Jesus distributes marijuana to the sick. During peer review of the project, one student became offended and later told her parents, who complained, and the teacher, Katrina Guarisco, found herself placed on administrative leave. Guarisco said she felt intimidated and harassed to the point where she ultimately had no choice but to tender her resignation. In a parting statement for her students, Guarisco encouraged them to remain faithful to themselves in their storytelling. Not everyone's going to agree with you, she said, but that doesn't make your point invalid or worthless. Tell your story.
Yeah, now this story hit the news before the Charlie Hebdo thing, and it was it at a different at some level. It's the same thing. It's somebody being offended by something somebody wrote, and taking it to an extreme, and basically harassing somebody to the point where they had to leave their job.
But it's somebody who didn't have anything to do with the story. She didn't write the story.
No,
she just let somebody read the story that they, one of the kids read the story that they wrote.
Right. Well,
the school board give her trouble, put her in trouble for that.
Yeah, we're only hearing her side of it. To be fair, we're only hearing her side of it. I can imagine a scenario where they were in class, and somebody said that like some kid wrote this story basically to jibe at the religious girl, and the religious girl took offense to it and told her parents, and the parents said the teacher let them. So if that's, and I'm not saying that is the situation. I'm just saying I can imagine that being the situation. We're only hearing her side. So if that's the situation, then she may have been a little bit tactless, but still, for the school board to go to the extreme of pressuring her to the point where she has to leave, and the school board is like really being a little bit. In the stories, the school board actually said, look, we didn't tell her to quit. She did that on her own. Well, yeah, if you pressure somebody enough, they're going to quit on their own. That's the point of pressuring them until they quit. So it just gives you culpable deniability. So that's how I read it anyway. That's my take on it. Is that's what the school board did. They just kind of pressured her until she quit, so they could say, well, she quit. We didn't do anything.
What do you think, Muddy?
Yeah, I mean, she probably should have seen something like this coming. I mean, you're going to tell kids to write a story and update a Bible story or something like that. Kids being kids, they're going to write shit like that to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to work in something just to try and piss the adults off.
Yeah,
and
he could have written a story about Jesus and Muhammad masturbating with the hole in Jesus' hand, but
yeah. So she might not have, I don't, like I say, it doesn't really show how she handled it in class. Did she have them turn in the stories and pick some and read them out, or did she just have them get up and tell their story without having heard it first or anything like that? So it's kind of hard to tell exactly what the scenario was and why it offended this girl so. But yeah, I mean, give a teenager a chance to piss somebody off, they usually will.
I'll tell you what, the writer in me really wants to read that essay. I want to read that kid's essay.
Well, I think it was a great idea, though, to go, from feeding the hungry to healing, giving help to the ill,
to heal their glaucoma.
Mm-hmm. Well, not just glaucoma. For somebody who's got cancer, for example, it's extremely useful.
Yeah, but Jesus healed the blind, so that's why I picked that one. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty clever idea because according to the way the stories were presented, the assignment was to update a story from fairy tales or mythology. So that could be part of the problem too, is that this kid was calling Jesus mythology.
Yeah. Absolutely. What state was that in?
I forget. Let's see.
New Mexico, I think, or maybe Arizona.
I should be able to tell you here. Rancho, New Mexico, Rio Rancho.
So somewhere down south.
Somewhere down south, but it's not like the Bible Belt South. It's New Mexico is a little different. Not a lot different, but it's New Mexico's not as radical Christian as Texas, and it's not as Bible thumpery as like Alabama or Arkansas, but it's still South. Yeah,
a bit more Catholic. From the Latino population, they're pretty heavily Catholic.
Yeah,
because I was just a bit surprised that, or in a way not surprised that something having to do with drugs and Jesus, that somebody would get upset over that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. There have been so many other things about that, though. Jesus, the idea of Jesus as a stoner Jesus is like a meme unto itself, and it pretty much, you know, deserves, you know, to be taken. The guy was a hippie, you know, if you read the whole thing, you
Yep.
know, minus the jewelry.
When you see the video, the news, actual news show, you'll see that I put the picture of a guy who's smoking up.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but then we don't know what Muddy's smoking right now. For all we know, it could be something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure my own self what I'm smoking right now. So, but yeah, you know, when you stop and think, the Book of Revelation was written by John of Patmos. Well, Patmos is known as the Isle of Mushrooms, and for some reason, you know, for some reason, I don't think they were talking about Portobello's either.
That's funny. That's hilarious. I never knew that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not John of Patmos. Maybe it was John on mushrooms.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the original Greek translations.
Yeah,
there. I'm not,
it was
you know,
mistranslated. It was John on mushrooms.
yeah.
John Shrooms.
Oh well, and those were our stories for this week.
Yes. Now Nicole doesn't have a Christian glitches for us this week, but I did want to let our audience know one of our other frequent cast members, Jenny McDermott, started a new project today. She's on another YouTube channel, Secularism TV. She's going to be doing a weekly feature. The show that she's doing for them, let me see if I can find it here real quick. It's got a bizarre name. I don't know why she named it this, but it's something like the Jack Off Show or something like that. What's it called? Where, if I can find it here. Videos. Boom, boom, boom. Jenny's Jack Off Hour. That's what she's calling it. So, yeah, I'll link to Secularism TV in the show notes also. So, if you want to watch Jenny's first show, she talks about Star Trek and multiculturalism. So, she did some good research for the show. So, she's making her inroads into the community there. Doing a good job.
Well,
Yes, she is.
With a name like the Jack Off Hour, you know, it could be she has a car lifting contest going on.
That's what it is. Yeah. She's just trying to get things
Well,
up there.
Well, actually, we had something not too far from here where a 15-year-old autistic boy had an industrial jack in his backyard that he had bought last summer for some odd reason. And turns out a few weeks ago, one of his neighbors was working under his car, and the jack that was holding it up fell on him. And the autistic boy saved a man's life. Came over, rushed over with his own jack, and lifted the car. So I thought that was great, especially from somebody with autism.
Yeah. They say that in situations like that, the adrenaline helps you to do that kind of thing. It's like instinctual. But and then one last thing that I wanted to make a quick comment on. Last year we ran a story about some guy who was upset that his time card had 666 on it. Remember that?
Yes.
And he wanted them to change that. Well, there was another case that we never covered. I don't know how we missed this case, but it was just recently decided on. And it was somebody who didn't want to have his hands scanned. The place where he was working, which Console Energy, was requiring all employees to have their right hand scanned. And this gentleman sued because he asked them if he could just continue doing his punch in and out on a time card because he was afraid of the mark of the beast. And a court decided in his favor last week and awarded him $150 fucking $1,000 because
Oh, Lordy.
Oh.
it's unbelievable. It's ridiculous because he didn't want to because he was afraid of the mark of the beast. It's bullshit. It's whatever.
I assume it was a fingerprint scanner type of thing, not an RFI chip or anything like that. I suppose it would have been a retina scanner. You would have got the same thing because the mark of the beast is supposed to be on your hand and on your forehead.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, one of the things that was funny was that, I don't think they should have even entertained this in the court case, but in the court case, to defend it, Console Energy said we offered to let him use his left hand because Revelation specifies that it's the right hand.
Okay.
Well, you just remind me of a different story, though that's kind of tied in with some news that came here that just happened here in Ontario. Remember last year when we talked about those children who died because their parents didn't take them to doctors because they believed God would heal them. Over here in Ontario, we had a young girl about 11 or 12 years old who had a perfectly treatable form of cancer, and her parents didn't want her to they're Aborigines, they're Indians. And so they wanted her to be, they didn't want her to get Western medication. They wanted her to be treated by the shaman, and the court agreed with her, and now she's dead.
Right. I saw that when you posted that on Facebook. That was crazy. That was sad. Well, you didn't post it. You commented on it, but it came up on my news.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it was. Yeah, that's sad. That's just terrible. But what are you going to do? Stupid people have kids, and then, well, it's like the vaccination thing. That's like Jenny McCarthy and the whole anti-vaxxer thing, where now everybody's getting sick because there's no herd immunity, because they don't want to get their kids vaccinated, so their kids come to school. A vaccination, like if I vaccinate my kids against measles and you don't, and your kid gets measles and spends enough time in my kid's company, eventually my kid might get the measles, even though he had the vaccination. So they're not only endangering their own kids, they're endangering other people's kids. And it's the same thing with this same idea. When you tell one religious fanatic that they can take their kid to a shaman instead of to a doctor, then you're allowing everybody to take their kids to shaman instead of doctors. And eventually those kids are going to be sick, and they're going to come to school with diseases that they could have gotten cured with an antibiotic, and they're going to make everybody else sick.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, have you heard of these pox parties?
That used to be.
Yeah, it's gotten to be kind of a vogue amongst the anti-vaxxers. Make sure that your kid actually catches something like chicken pox or measles from a kid who's sick, so that they'll get their natural immunity to it rather than getting a vaccination. Well, of course, having the chicken pox is no fun. I mean, I had it when I was 15, I think, or 16. I was sicker as shit for a week. Not to mention the nice, itchy, terrible fucking blisters all over you. But you can die from chicken pox or from measles or from anything else like that, and they're deliberately infecting their children with this. Right. I mean, it just... And
then later you can get shingles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which reminds me, I should get my shingles shot before that happens.
And talking about measles, it seems that I don't know which Disney park it was, if it was Disneyland or... but the thing is, they've linked a whole spread of the measles to one of the Disney parks because some kids got it.
I saw that. Yeah. The anti-vaxxers took their kids to Disney World and gave everybody measles.
I wonder. I'm waiting for the inevitable lawsuit to come out of this. Where somebody deliberately has their kid running around sick with measles or German measles, especially with the disease itself isn't very severe, but for pregnant women, it can be really dangerous to have German measles because it causes a lot of different kind of birth defects. And, deafness, in the child later on is a big one, but it can also, deafness is one of the main ones, but it can also cause mental retardation, or you can end up miscarrying because of German measles. And if somebody was deliberately running around infecting their kids and then end up getting passed on to a woman who ended up losing her baby over it, I'm sure there could be some sort of legal repercussion for something like that.
And depending on as to how old the man is, if a man of a certain age gets the measles, he can become completely sterile.
No, that's the mumps you're thinking.
The mumps, sorry.
Yeah.
But that's still, one of the dangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MMR, it's the same same vaccination. It's the same shot.
Same shot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, so it's a sad world. We have to share with these people. I wanted to announce a few things from my own side of things. I recently, before we went on hiatus, I was mentioning that I was going to start a podcast for fiction, and I put a couple of my stories on the feed for our iTunes feed for this show. Well, that podcast has started. It's 3 weeks in, and it's growing really fast. I started the first week, I had like 100 downloads. The second week, the second show had 160 downloads, and there were extra downloads on the first show. This week, the third show has only been out 3 days, and it's already at 100 downloads. And the other shows are getting more downloads. So it's growing pretty fast. So I'm pretty pleased with the way that show's working out. It's called the Thrills and Mystery Podcast, and you can find it on iTunes just by typing Thrills and Mystery, one word, into the search. So just want to put that one out there.
All right.
And does anybody else have anything to promote before we go off?
That's it.
Nope. I'm not selling anything this week, so.
Okay, well, that's all for today then. Please make sure you subscribe to the Atheism TV channel. There you can watch the Infidel News for the Damned, where our talented team of writers and anchors presents these and other stories not normally covered in the media. In the coming week, the Infidel will rerun today's stories and many more fascinating ones. You'll find Atheism TV at youtube.com/atheismtv. The Infidel Podcast of the Damned is a Nicole SD production. Nicole and I would like to recognize and say thank you to Truth Search, who did the voiceover used in our intro and gave us permission to use music from his song Lied To as our opening theme. We'd also like to thank Muddy for participating in today's podcast. Thank you again, Muddy.
Yep, you're welcome.
Nicole's channel is Nicole SD and can be found at youtube.com/NICOLSD. I'm Gamut Man on YouTube, at Gamut Man on Twitter, and my blog and information on my books, including my nonfiction title, Believe It, You Know an Atheist, as well as my mystery novels featuring the atheist detective Lupa Schwartz, can be accessed at tinyurl.com/lupalanding. While there, you can sign up to receive my newsletter. Signing up also entitles you to choose one free ebook title from my collection of 99-cent novellas. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.